There are many things that can create problems in our digestive system, such as salivary glands, permeable intestine, colitis, or a different combination that make up digestive problems, of which are becoming increasingly more and more common. It used to be believed that the digestive system was simply just a tube where several different digestive functions just happen. Today, to prevent or fix a digestive problem such as inflammation, constipation, or something more severe, there are things that, whether we like it or not, must be understood in order to improve our health and be able to identify the things that should be done and those things that can be simply just ignored. So for this video, we're going to dive into some concepts that can help you lower inflammation. Keep in mind that 3/4 of our digestive system is spread throughout the digestive system and the other quarter is scattered throughout the body. Or that the rupture of just one membrane of one cell, which separates the inside from the outside, if broken, it can create allergies, giving rise to things that were not there before, or perhaps foods that you could easily digest, now they create inflammation. Our digestive system is so interconnected with our brain, so much that our enteric nervous system, a system that's distributed throughout the gut, this system has more neurons than the brain does. Both networks are of course linked together, and this is why it's called the second brain. The vagus nerve is one of the biggest nerves connecting both the gut and the brain, and also responsible for making us feel butterflies in our stomach or feeling bloated whenever nervous. This is also the reason for feeling nauseous whenever consuming antidepressants, and that's because these affect the gut flora, which can then also cause depression. And as you can see, there's a bit of a paradox there, but the effects in the gut are also the reason for mood change whenever consuming foods that you might be intolerant to, which could also potentially affect cognitive functions and creating feelings like feeling less smart or less focused. So let's look at the most common symptoms and ways to fix these issues and be able to lower inflammation of our digestive system. First things are sensitivities to Fodmap. Many people today are starting to eat better. However, some still experience a sensitivity to gluten, wheat products, and dairy are among the most common things. But the reason to mention Fodmap, it's because there are specific carbohydrates that, when fermented, begin to create inflammation in the digestive system. And all the symptoms are associated to inflammation, which, by the way, are not just the digestive system. These symptoms can be everywhere, such as joint problems, a slower cognitive functionality, and several other things. Whenever we eat, and that includes a healthy meal, much of the food that we consume won't be able to be absorbed, at least like we're supposed to. Instead, it's accumulated and it remains as fiber in the gut, from which bacteria feeds from. This is important because if we don't consume fibers, our bacteria won't have anything to feed from, and this bacteria will die. Therefore, maintaining a balanced amount of food is important to prevent either excessive growth, which can create inflammation, swelling, diarrhea, or constipation, but also preventing the death of the bacteria, which can also lead to problems with concentration and fatigue. Now, if I have the symptoms, I have to be able to lower the amount of these foods, but these things are never just black and white. Instead, start by removing one thing at a time and observe how you feel. If your inflammation went away, or at least it went down, start by taking probiotics to better improve your gut flora. By doing it this way, you can slowly introduce the food that used to create inflammation back into your diet, and it won't have that same effect. And this is with the idea of creating a stronger gut flora. If this doesn't improve the situation, then using phytotherapy or home remedies, it can help you reduce the symptoms. And there are many examples of teas and supplements that can help you, such as horse chestnut or mint. These substances help prevent symptoms that were originated from food. They help relax our small intestine and inhibit the production of methane gas. This is a gas that creates bloating and cramps. Another important factor that contributes to inflammation is the lack of enzymes. This is very common in two types of scenarios. The people that have one giant meal per day. For this, it's very important to have the enzymatic capacity to be able to digest big amounts of food. And the other scenario is with people that eat while being highly stressed. And this can occur after exercising, the stress from work, or family stress. The problem with this is that the lack of enzymes, because the stress inhibits the release of them, A typical and common scenario to this is whenever eating a lot of protein and not being able to digest it well. If you're wondering if this is your case, the best way to confirm that you're lacking digestive enzymes is by doing a stool analysis. Or you can just pay attention to the symptoms such as abdominal distension even after a few hours of food consumption, such as gases after eating a meal, feeling full after a small amount of food, and pieces of undigested food in the stool. This last one is important even if it sounds gross, because it shows whether or not you should be eating that specific type of food for this period of time. The best way to help fix this is by avoiding eating during periods of high stress. Instead, incorporate intermittent fasting, but if you must eat for some given reason, utilize tryptophan or 5-HTP or digestive enzymes. These supplements will help accomplish different things. Tryptophan and 5-HTP are going to help relax and release more digestive enzymes, which are going to trigger the release of gastric juices to better digest. However, if the stress levels are high, then using digestive enzymes will help supplement more digestive enzymes to better digest. But keep in mind that they should only be used as a supplement and not forever. And perhaps this may sound too redundant, but when it comes to digestion and nutrient absorption, this is something essential. This also brings benefits, and that is to lower the inflammation. Whenever we have low levels of inflammation, the liver is much more effective at producing a higher quality of bile. Keep in mind that using supplements are just like the name implies, they're only meant to be consumed for some time. There are very few supplements that would be consumed forever. Instead, trying to address the root problem and using supplements to help you get there should be the approach. The last option whenever facing severe food intolerance is to process the food and drink a green juice instead. An important aspect to remember if your gallbladder was removed is that the amount of bile production is going to be a lot lower than that of a normal person, given the fact that the gallbladder will help accumulate bile to be able to properly digest the food. This also implies that digesting fats becomes harder. And the first advice is to stay away from a ketogenic diet because the amount of bile is not enough, thus not a sustainable process for the body. Another cause of inflammation is gut flora problems, and that can be an excess or a lack of bacteria. Both ends of the spectrum are bad and we need to have a balance. The obvious way to ruin our gut flora is to have low amounts of bacteria, which is by eating junk, foods that promote growth of unwanted bacteria and many times parasites. Those diets tend to be low in fibers and high on sugar. Many times also the person can be consuming antibiotics, which also damages the gut flora. The symptoms that arise from low levels of bacteria are constipation, allergies, and higher likelihood to develop thrombosis. Another symptom is not being able to properly digest fibers, and that can be noticed in the stool as black or white dots. Lastly, it's the physical performance, which will be a lot lower than the average. A simple stool analysis is something that can be analyzed by your doctor and something that can give you a roadmap to take action. And if you think this is your case, you can start by improving by simply start consuming broad spectrum probiotics. This means consuming many different types of bacteria in a supplement form, so when it grows in the gut, there is no risk of creating excess of just one type of bacteria. The excess of just one type can create negative effects such as the overgrowth. Another tip is consuming fermented foods, and that's if you're not intolerant to them. Sauerkraut can help increase the amount of bacteria, and the best way to test if it's going to be effective or not is by trial and error. If you feel good, then consuming it would be a good idea, but if it created discomfort, perhaps it's not the time to consume it. Prebiotics are also something that can't be forgotten because this is the food of the probiotic. These types of food are high in fiber, and if for some reason you can't consume it, then at the very least consume a supplement form, which usually comes in powder. Now, I mentioned that we can have a low amount of bacteria or an excess, so what happens when there is an excess? The symptoms are usually less acidic with the gastric juices. This means that it's harder to digest food, and this will be more common with people that consume more carbohydrates. And the reason is because the bacteria that we don't want to grow in excess feeds from refined carbohydrates. Now, the best ways to prevent it is by reducing refined carbohydrates, consuming oregano oil or garlic extract. This will help balance the type of bacteria that grows in the digestive system. Another way is to increase the acidity of the gastric juice to prevent bacterial growth in the small intestine, which is done by consuming something as simple as apple cider vinegar. Preventing foods that you're allergic to or intolerant is an obvious one. The most common ones is dairy and gluten products. Emotions are probably the least thought about, but it is another factor that is likely to generate inflammation. And that's all I have for this video. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, leave us a comment, and let us know what else you'd like us to cover. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. See you on the next one.